Hello everyone, welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. I'm Rishi Persad, and as usual alongside me is Steve Ryder, and this week we welcome Donn McClean to the show after the Cheltenham Festival, so lots and lots and lots to talk about. Donn, let's start with you and your overriding impression of the 4 days.
Look, it was brilliant, Rishi. It's an intense week. And look, I know there were some negatives about it, but it was kind of drama from start to finish. Like the champion hurdle on the first day was, quite incredible. And then on the Wednesday, the Michael O'Sullivan theme ran through that whole day for Marine Nationale. And then Jazzy Matty, the two horses on whom Michael O'Sullivan had won 2 years ago, for both of them to even run on the same day and then for both of them to win. And then Thursday, like Rachel Blackmore was brilliant on Thursday with her two winners. Very similar types of rides, and then all the drama of the Gold Cup and Galloping the Champ, would he or wouldn't he? Didn't in the end, but went out in the Shield, I thought. So yeah, look, I thought it was full on from start to finish.
A great summary of the 4 days. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Racing Weekly. Steve, as Donn mentioned, there are a couple of negative things, and I hope you don't mind if I kick off with you on two major issues. The crowd was a big talking point all the way through it, and the start was another negative as fans of the sport, watching how that unfolded over a number of races.
Yeah, the attendance figures are always gonna catch your eye. I thought it was busy Tuesday and Friday, and it just slightly felt a little quieter on the Wednesday and Thursday, but I thought facilities-wise, Cheltenham did very, very well, going to the toilet, getting a beer, everything seemed a lot faster, and actually it was actually quite nice to be there for all 4 days, and yeah, it was absolutely fine there. There were no problems at all. The start is the main talking point, I think. There are a few where they're just so far from the tape, but just let them go. If they're in a line, just let them go. I've listened to things afterwards, and they're trying to reduce the speed at what they get to the first hurdle. Well, why are they lining up so far behind it then? And there were a few that were called false starts, which really, really shouldn't have been. And thankfully, a bit of knowledge and probably slight difference of opinion changed for the Friday, where actually they were just allowed to go when they should have been, really.
I think that there are a number of horses had their chances compromised by this. I mean, Maureen would be an obvious one. For
yeah, I like what Steve says, right. I think by the last day, they were letting them go further away from the tape. The starter went, okay, they're in a good enough line now. They're not going to break into a canter or whatever. So we let them go. So even though they have like 100 yards or 150 yards to go to get to the tape, but yeah, like lots of horses had their chances compromised, and I think it's more of a negative for front runners than for hold up horses, because if you're a front runner, obviously you want to be in front or handy, and the standing starts. They're a lotto, aren't they? Whether a horse is going to jump with the standing start or not, and just because you're a front runner, it doesn't mean you're going to go when you're standing still. So I think it's a bigger negative for horses who want to be handy than it is like if you're going to settle in behind. You're just going to get off whenever in mid division or race prominent or race patiently. But yeah, some of the front runners.
I'm thinking of Broadway Boy in that particular instant, who never really got going because of what happened at the start.
Well, especially as well, there was like a dogleg turn where they were going into, and Sam Twiston-Davies was up the inside, and I was thinking, you're just not going to get a run. You need to be literally first as the tape goes, or you're going to. And he ended up jumping around 10th, and that's his chance done. He just doesn't jump as well enough.
And Grandeur Dame was the same, and that like the coming on a bend, and this point has been made before. I think Dan Barber made it, that when you're coming on a bend, like the horses on the outside, they have to go faster, and then you're looking to your right and you're seeing a horse going faster than you, and you're going, hold on a minute, I'm not, and then it has a ripple effect, and yeah, like
they're also herd animals. Like I ride a horse, and it's often in a 3, and with 3 of them, if one of them breaks into a trot, you're all basically trotting within 5 yards of each other, let alone 24 runners in a handicap with the Cheltenham atmosphere. Like, you just got no chance.
Is there a solution?
Look, we've been racing horses over obstacles for, 200 years, and it's still like this. But it's now, the start is now important. Like, back then, but way back when, it wasn't that important, a national hunt race start whenever you're ready and off you go. But now, especially at Cheltenham, and that's where it's come into a laser focus. The start is important, and all jockeys want to, they don't want to miss the start. It's as important now as the mid part of the race or the end of the race. So I don't know what the solution. There have been many potential solutions put forward. A shaving foam line like we have it in football, where you have to stand behind, and there you have to stand there and then go forward. But then, would there be a rush on that on the secondary line before you get to the primary line? In Japan, they start horses in stalls over jumps.
Yeah, I saw that. Who knows? So a couple of negative things, obviously that. I know Cheltenham are very keen to still continue their progression with the crowds and the customer experience. So that's something that we could obviously talk about a little bit later on. But let's focus on what was really the most exciting, most enjoyable aspect of it all, and that is the racing. And we start this week's racing recap by looking at the first of the big races, or the big race on the first day. That was the Champion Hurdle. Now, if anyone had said to any of us sitting on this panel that the first two home in the Kingwell Hurdle were going to fill the first two positions.
It's a good trial.
It is now. But my goodness, what a sequence of events. I mean, I can't remember a hurdle race where two champion hurdlers have fallen in it.
Yeah, no, it was quite incredible, and watching it live, it took me a while after the race to kind of realise what had happened. When Constitution Hill fell, you're kind of going, he's not going to win. He's not going to be involved in the finish. He's not going to be part of that battle up the hill. And then you're looking to see Brighter Days Ahead. How's she travelling? She's going well. And then suddenly Stateman is travelling better than her. Then he kicks clear. And then, what happens at the last? No, it was just an incredible sequence of events. But look, Jeremy Scott and the owners, they wanted to be in the race, or the owner especially, because he wanted to have a go, and he was there to pick it up. Yeah,
and similar as well for Burdett Road. I know obviously Golden Ace won the race, but a lot of people expected Burdett Road to go down the county hurdle. They took a chance as well, and they finished second. Man on my left here, in fairness to him, called that Constitution Hill's jumping was a cause for concern. You mentioned that a couple of times. You also mentioned about the last hurdle, if there is sunshine, and there was enough sunshine to suggest that might have been an issue. And you did call it, but perhaps not quite exactly where it happened, but you did say beforehand that it was a concern.
Yeah, just delaying that race to 4 o'clock. We've seen it so many times in the mare's hurdle, falls at the last, and yeah, it just happened to Stateman. I felt really sorry for him. The first time cheap pieces I thought were going to be a negative. I thought it was a bit of a desperate move. Do you remember when they did it with Faheen a few years ago? They chucked it on at declaration time, and fair enough. And this time, apparently he'd worked in cheap pieces, worked brilliantly, and it just made him travel so much better. He was miles clear. I'm not having this that Golden Ace was staying on as well as him, and it might have been a finish. I'm completely in the camp with Paul Townend. I don't think he did anything wrong. Like, the stride is there. He's asked him for a stride and just hasn't got his landing gear out.
And how many races has Paul Townend won by kicking off the home bend like that and settling the race with just the final flight in front of you?
Yeah. I mean, the horse got battered on the preview circuit. I felt really sorry for him. He was going to be a really impressive winner for the race. And the race as a whole, it's amazing. 3 horses went odds on in running, and neither of all 3 won the race. It was just incredible, really. Looking at Brighter Days Ahead, are there any excuses? You think Cheltenham now might be a thing? Like, if she now goes novice chasing and is a relatively short price favourite for the Arkle next year, that's got to be in the back of your head, really. Gone there twice and been beaten at relatively short odds twice. You would have said it would have been the offspring of the mare, but then Caldwell Potter obviously came out on the Thursday and quashed that. Cheltenham's lost maybe Punchestown Gain, though. We might be able to see this in a few weeks' time if the big hit is called end.
Yeah, Nicky Henderson didn't waste any time in suggesting that's where Constitution Hill was going to go. Incidentally, and I know we still have other horses to talk about, amongst the novices in particular, but the Bet365 betting for the Champion Hurdle, as things stand now, Constitution Hill's your 3-1 favourite, Quebec de Board 4-1, Lossiemouth 5-1, the New Lion 7s, Stateman 10s, Amsterdam 16s, Brighter Days Ahead 20s, and the defending champion, Golden Ace, 25-1. Anything appealing when I say that right now? Potter Ross, 25-1.
If they all go to Punchestown, Golden Ace is in at 14-1, 5th favourite.
Wow. The
Champion Hurdle winner is 5th favourite at 14-1 if they all go there. It's a very unusual state of affairs, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Any thoughts on?
I will touch on it. I loved the Turners Novices Hurdle as a race. I think the top
Don't
three
give it away.
are really, really smart, and I would really respect the new Lion. We'll touch on that later on. But I think State Man once again is being forgotten. Like, he'd have been an impressive 2-time winner of a champion hurdle, going for his third, and he's available at what, a double-figure price?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be 9 next year, won't he?
Yeah.
So he's getting towards the upper end of the age range. And the race, it wasn't running a fast time. The champion hurdle, I mean, we're always comparing it with the Supreme Novices Hurdle, but it kind of lost ground on the Supreme Novices Hurdle all the way along. There was no point at which it gained a significant amount of ground on it. It was 4 seconds slower in the end. Golden Age was 4 seconds slower. Now it would have been faster, obviously, if State Man had stood up. And even comparing with the Mares Hurdle, I think the Mares Hurdle was very slowly run initially, but the Mares gained about 6 seconds on the champion hurdle field from the fourth last where Constitution Hill departed until the line, and the Mares Hurdle is obviously over a half a mile further. So it wasn't a fast run race, the champion hurdle.
Well, let's talk about the Mares Hurdle. Lossiemath is actually 2-1 favourite Bet365 to defend her crown next year. Brighter Days Ahead 6-1, but she was just a class apart in this company.
Yeah, we touched on the starts earlier on. The fact that Paul Townend had the confidence to give Jade de Grugy, who's already a Grade 1 winner, 4 lengths at the start, off you go, you can set the pace for me. Just kind of says it all around how she was working and the confidence he had behind her. I thought she was brilliant. I love this horse. Back to being her keen going self, jumped brilliantly. Now a 3-time festival winner, 4 from 4 at Cheltenham. Like, wherever she runs next season, I'm going to want to be with her, because she was really, really impressive. And just a shout out to Lydia Hislop. Like, I thought her interview with Richie afterwards, when she said she won it with speed and class, as a little bit of a dig that she should have been in the champion hurdle, was just fantastic. I thought she was brilliant.
The danger in my mind is that she's now won 2 Mares Hurdles. Quavega, blah, blah, blah. That she won't get the chance. I hope she does get the chance to have a dig at the champion hurdle.
Yeah, you'd hope so. I mean, Honeysuckle won her Mares Hurdle, then won her 2 champion hurdles, and went back and won the Mares Hurdle. So she's kind of doing it in a different order, maybe, because she's only 6. You know, there's loads more to come from her. But no, I agree with Steve. Like, she was so good. It was a slowly run race. Jade de Grugy got it out in front. Thought Take No Chances ran really well. She stayed on well from off the pace, off a sedate pace to take 3rd place, and she's, you know, her rating is way lower than the 2 finished in front of her. But no, Lossiemath, you know, even on the run-in, you were kind of going, what would have happened? Yeah.
Let's reflect on the champion chase on Wednesday. We'll talk about the market for next year's race afterwards. But Marine Nationale, the eventual winner, obviously the emotions and the occasion was perhaps more overriding than anything else on the day. But it all happened primarily after what happened to John Bon. And I'll start with you here, Steve, on John Bon. All the chat before Cheltenham, a lot of people defending the horse, saying Cheltenham's not an issue, he's going to be fine there, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, it's an issue. It's another time that he's made a serious error at Cheltenham.
Yeah, and I was a big advocate of, I thought he jumped better under Nico de Boinville when Nico de Boinville made his mind up. And he said, right, we're going for a long one. And he put in an extra stride. And was it too long? You couldn't really see. I haven't seen any other angles, and it's kind of hidden by other horses, and you can't really see how long a stride is asked for there. But that was game over from there, wasn't it? I know he plugged on into 2nd late on, but Marine Nationale, I've looked at it, and he actually maintains that that distance between the 2 of them as they jump the last. I thought Marine Nationale was very good. It'd be interesting to see what would happen if Quilixios would have stood up, but I thought Marine Nationale actually stayed on really strongly at the finish and sprinted up the hill. I was impressed with the performance. It was nice to see him do it and get the ground at the festival, and that's kind of what he's been wanting for the previous 2 years. He's had plenty of excuses around wind and everything with regards to that, but he has been running on ground that's been softer than ideal, and he got his conditions in this race.
I would have liked to have seen what Quilixios would have done to give us some perspective on it, because he didn't look, he was down and out, Quilixios, obviously, when he came down at the last.
I don't think he was down and out, but like, he didn't deserve to fall. He ran a hell of a race, but no, I think Marine Nationale would have beaten him, as Steve said, the way that he came up the hill. And like, it's vindication for Barry Connell, you know, and like because of the Michael O'Sullivan connection, that kind of went under the radar a little bit, but to produce the horse like that, like this is only his 6th run over fences, and he's been saying all along he's still improving. He's only learning. He had his beginner's chase win, and then one other run as a novice, and now he's back. Like, he's a year older than Solness, and Solness has run like 17 times or something over fences.
That's only this season.
Yeah, but no, it was. I thought he was very good. I don't know if you've seen jockey cam footage from Sean Flanagan, and it's around the inside, and he just gave him a superb ride. And to me, that's fascinating. You watch it again and again and again just to get that kind of adrenaline rush. It's hard to imagine what those lads experience, but I thought he was really good. And yeah, who knows, why can't he come back and be a competitor again next year, or maybe even the year after? Barry Connell talking about Baswood Boy, but
yeah,
interesting. His final 4 furlongs, he was 2.6 seconds faster than John Bon. Now I know John Bon, whatever took it, he made that mistake and took it out of him, but he still, the visual of him coming up the hill, that was kind of, I suppose, backed up by his time, but yeah, like the emotion of the day for Michael O'Sullivan. And then Jazzy Matty to go and win later on the day. Like, it was, quite incredible. And great that Charlotte Giles, Michael O'Sullivan's girlfriend, was in the winner's enclosure with Barry Connell, and, great that she was there as well.
Sagino is the 3-1 favourite with Bet365 for next year's Champion Chase. Madgeborough 6-1. John Bon 7, same price as Marine Nationale. And then it's 16-1 bar those. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Let's move on and talk about what happened on Thursday, starting with the Stayers Hurdle. And in a similar sort of vein to what we've been talking about, surprise results. Now, there might have been a time that you would have said, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, that Bob Olinger would win a Stayers Hurdle. Subsequent to that, I don't think he's done anything to suggest that he would stay the trip in a Stayers Hurdle. Far less travel like he did. Last horse off the bridle.
Yeah.
And win it like that.
Yeah, like he's had I think he's had 3 runs now over 3 miles. He's 0 for 3. He's a point-to-point winner, but under rules he's never won over 3 miles. But it looked like Rachel Blackmore went out with a plan, and that she was going to ride a waiting race regardless of how the race panned out. Like, she was 9th of the 9 remaining runners on the run down the hill. Like, she was in behind, and to use his pace, and the pace that we know he has. When Tiapu went on, he looked a likely winner. Looked like he was going to go and land a second. But Bob Olinger, he came up the hill. He showed that turn of foot, and you're going to need stamina at the end of 3 miles at Cheltenham, regardless of how fast they've gone. And he showed all of that. And yeah, fantastic performance for a 10-year-old to win the Stayers Hurdle as well. So Cyr de Burley won it as an 11-year-old 2 years ago. But before that, you have to go back to Crimson Embers. So it's not, he had so much against him, but no. Brilliant. And actually, he wasn't ignored in the market. He was solid enough in the market.
No, and the other thing about him is that when he went back over hurdles, Robbie Power's done a lot of work in taking this. He took the horse away, I think, and spent a lot of time trying to restore his confidence. He was very keen to tell people that don't give up on this horse. This is 2 years ago. I remember him saying this, and don't give up on this horse. We're doing a lot of work. It's his confidence that seemed to be lacking. And it's interesting that since he came back in the second reincarnation, he's been ridden with a lot more confidence, and as you say, that's exactly the sort of ride Rachel gave him.
Yeah, we arrived on the Tuesday. Obviously, we were doing previews at around 8 o'clock, so we then headed out on the gallop. So we saw Henry's lot. We saw Envoy Allen and Bob Olinger, and there was plenty of stars there. And Bob just strutted around as if he was like, "Yep, I'm the man." Like, knew exactly where he was at Cheltenham. He just comes alive, doesn't he? Like, yes, obviously the win over Galopin de Champs was fortuitous, but his Cheltenham record is impeccable. Brilliant horse, and you always like those sort of horses to have a personality. You feel, I don't know, a bit more of a warmth towards them, and I don't think anyone was against Bob Olinger when he came back into the parade ring.
Tiapu is the favourite, though, for the Stayers Hurdle at 4-1 with Bet365, Yellow Clay 10s, Ballyburn and Bob Olinger 12s, Jasmine DeVoe 14s and 16s, bar those. More chat on that a little bit later on. Arguably, one of the most impressive performances of the whole meeting came courtesy of Factor File in the Ryanair chase. Let's just deal with that performance and just how special it was in the context of the whole week.
Yeah, probably the wow performance of the week for me. I was really, really impressed. I said to you on the day, I thought Lossy Mouth, she won the race, and immediately you said, you were probably in the wrong race. And as soon as Factor File passed the winning line, I thought, no, you were in the right race. He could be ridden a lot more prominently. He was enthusiastic without being too keen, jumped so much better. I don't know if that was the ground or what, but I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Impressive winner, sprinted up the hill. He would give the assumption that going that Gold Cup trip might obviously be within reach next season, but yeah, I was really impressed with him.
Well, when I look back at the result again, and you think that 2 former winners of the race, Envoy Allen and Protectorat, were thumped by him, and they seemed to run their race. They seemed to, as they've often done at Cheltenham, and the way he's thumped them, I thought that was a high class of the very top draw, 2.5 mile chases.
Yeah, and he travelled like he was going to do something like that from early in the race, didn't he? Like you were, if you backed him, and I didn't, you wouldn't have had any worry the whole way. Like he just was in Mark Walsh's hands all the while. You knew he was going to stay it. He showed that turn of foot as well, and his time, he was 4.5 seconds faster than the Jack Richards chase, and he was over 5.5 seconds faster than the plate. So the time was really fast as well. I know it's a grade 1 race, but you'd expect it to be faster, but it was a really fast time as well. And like Enval, and he's a remarkable horse. He's 11 now. He's run at the last 7 Cheltenham Festivals, I think.
Incredible, isn't it?
Unbelievable. And he ran his race again, ran a hell of a race to finish third. He's won at 3 of them. Protectorate ground probably was on the quick side for him, wasn't it? I thought it was just a wee bit better than he would have ideally liked. But Factify, no, it was I'm with Steve on that. It was one of the wow performances of the meeting.
So if he were yours, would he stay over 2.5 miles? Will you have I mean, things like the King George would certainly be in his remit.
Yeah.
But next year, at this stage, Gold Cup or Ryanair?
I think you campaign him as a Gold Cup horse throughout the season and see how he goes again. You run him in the races that you did. I think he's likely to plot the similar sort of path. I imagine he'll head to the King George rather than head into the Savills Chase at Christmas. I think the King George is probably made for him. So you'd go John Durkan, King George, Irish Gold Cup, and see how the likes of Galopan and Inothewayurthinkin have actually ran throughout the season.
Yeah, I'd echo exactly that. Like John Durkan's it's a great race for him. It's not even 2.5 miles the early part of the season, and now since they've moved it back, there's enough of a gap between the John Durkan chase and Christmas for him to do both, and we've seen that with Galopin Des Champs the last 2 years. So yeah, and look at it. Wouldn't be at all surprising if he went to Kempton instead of Leopardstown at Christmas.
I'm going to speak to Willie Mullins and JP McManus. 3 races next season. Don't mess about at Leopardstown in testing ground over Christmas and at the Dublin Racing Festival. John Durkan, King George, Gold Cup. Don't mess about.
Point just down.
We'll see about that afterwards. The Gold Cup.
Yeah.
He's currently, I think he's 6-1 with Bet365 for the Gold Cup at the moment. Yes, he is. I know the way you're thinking, obviously the favourite at 5-1. Okay, let's move on to talk about the Gold Cup. And I mentioned that I know the way you're thinking is now 5-1 favourite to defend his crown next year. Tell me about the way you watch the race develop, particularly through the prism of the horse going for a 3rd Gold Cup.
Yeah, look, you're obviously watching Galopin Des Champs. I just thought from early on, you just weren't wholly happy with Galopin Des Champs. Maybe it was the ground, maybe just there's 2 Gold Cup wins are on soft ground, and maybe that was just a factor in it. That said, when they came down the hill, there was nothing travelling better than him over the second last time around to the home turn. But look, I know the way you're thinking. 7-year-old, he didn't travel as well as Galopin Des Champs down the hill, but he found lots, and then on the run-in, he came right away from his rivals. I thought it was a monstrous performance by the winner.
I thought, I don't know what you both thought, but when they came down the hill into the straight for the final time, there was a moment where I thought Mark Walsh is going to spin him out and take him round the outside. Then he's put him back in between horses, and he's come alive. I mean, he really seemed to respond to that. And then suddenly he looks like he's probably just about going best of all, where I thought he needs to get him out and get him going if he wants to win this.
He was adamant to go inside Jack Kennedy on Corbett's Cross, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to hear any jockey cam footage of how much of a shout he was trying to give. I'm in the same colours as you, in order to get up the inside. But I try not to do it, but I had the in-running odds up from an early stage of that race, and Galopan obviously drifted at that point. But I know we were thinking was a pretty big price in running early on, didn't jump with that sort of enthusiasm. I think the race was slightly ruined by a Hoyt jumping right, because they all seemed to follow him as a result. And obviously his fall then sort of hampered. Monty Starr made a mistake early on. That probably hinders his progress later on in there. But if they hadn't supplemented Inothewayurthinkin, we'd have been talking around an impressive 12-length winner of a Gold Cup winning his 3rd in a row. I thought the 2 of them came out with a lot of credit going forward, and it's going to be interesting to see if they run him in a Grand National from £15 well in. I looked at it, the final speed, like finishing speed percentage of Inothewayurthinkin was 111%.
That's extraordinary for a Gold Cup.
He was so strong. I watched it up near Richard Hoyle's near the commentary box, really high up in the grandstand, and you thought approaching the last, this is going to be, Galopin's got a chance of fighting back, and as soon as they jumped the last, it was over. It was stretching clear, and I often said in the previews, like Galopin de Champs, there'll be a race up to the last, and Galopin will do what he does and sprints up the hill, and I know you're thinking just left him for dead.
And it looked like he was going to do that, didn't it? Like when he turned for home, I think it was 1.3 something he traded in running when he turned for home. And at that point, you just thought, that's it, he's just going to win. And then suddenly, I know the way you're thinking is go, and he's close enough to him, and he's travelling better suddenly. And no, it was a brilliant race between, you know, the champion, the dual champion going for his third, and the kind of young pretender, just a 7-year-old who was only put in the race recently at the supplementary stage. On Monty Star, that mistake early on, like it was a really bad mistake. Rachel did well to stay on board, and you know, because it was early on, it's not really maybe factored into it so much, but it was a really bad mistake. And look, Galopin de Champs, he wasn't done any favours either by a horse, Ahoy Senor's fall. He kind of took Monty Star to the right. He took Galopin de Champs to the right as well. I'm sure it wasn't the difference between winning and losing. It just didn't help him at that point in the race.
2 questions. One about the Gold Cup and one about the Grand National. First of all, well, I know the way you're thinking, 5-1, Factor File 6-1, Galopin de Champs 8-1 with Bet365. It's then 20-1 bar those. Galopin de Champs Gold Cup winning days done now, or you give him a chance of coming back? And obviously Corto's the only other horse to regain the Gold Cup in the history of the race.
He's going to be 10, isn't he? Like it's cooled on. Still the last 10-year-old to win a Gold Cup, I think. That's. I mean, brilliant champion that he is. I'm sure he'd be a factor next year, but he just have to, like, I know the way you're thinking is probably going to improve from this 7-year-old winning it. He's going to be obviously just an 8-year-old in his prime. Galopin de Champs is going to be 10. You're not as good at 10 as you are at 9, according to the stats. So, I think all things being equal, it would be a mammoth task for him to go and win another Gold Cup now.
Agree?
I want to back Galopin de Champs twice next year, and that'll be in the Savills Chase at Christmas and in the Irish Gold Cup, and then we'll see where we are, because I think he's a better horse at Leopardstown than what he is at Cheltenham. I was saying this all the way through. Like he's now, that really is his only defeat, going left-handed over fences. Like he is brilliant, but Leopardstown just kicking off that turn like Paul does so well and bringing him wide just seems to work so well. So I wouldn't write him off.
Yep.
You'll probably get a bigger price than what you will after he's defeated John Durkan again and get beaten probably at Punchestown if they go there this year. So what price is Galopin for it?
8-1.
Yeah, so you'll probably get, I don't know, 16-1 when he's defeated in his next 2 starts, and that is too big of a price, because as soon as he wins at Leopardstown twice again next season, he'll be back into being
the second favourite.
Yeah.
And I know the way you're thinking, Grand National. Would you, if he were yours, you'd run him in the Grand National?
Look, if he does run in it, he's probably, they're saying he's probably going to be the shortest priced Grand National favourite ever, because it's not as hard a race to get around anymore as it used to be. I mean, it used to be the case that you couldn't have a horse shorter than 4-1 or 8-1 or 12-1 in a Grand National. But look, £15 well in, comes out of the race well.
Yeah. Bet365 have a non-runner no bet market for the Grand National, and he's 3-1 for that.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I imagine he'll go off shorter than that if he.
I'd say you're right. Yeah.
Every single trainer that you had interviewed after Cheltenham was like, so what's the next target? Are they going to go to Aintree? And they were all saying, no, it's going to come too close. We're going to look at Punchestown instead. But if he's ever going to win a Grand National, it will be this year when he's £15 well in, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's a really difficult one.
And he was favourite for the race before he was £15 well in.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? He was put in as favourite after the Irish Gold Cup.
But you also look at the connections of them, and this might be pointless in 51 minutes when we get the entries through for the Grand National. But you then look at Gavin Cromwell has other horses for it, the likes of Stumptown, who obviously won at it. JP McManus obviously has I Am Maximus, Percival Lagawa. Like, they do have other options. Of who they actually will want to run in the race. So you can see a counter argument for both ways.
All right. We're going to switch tack now to the novice hurdlers, and again, one of the most impressive performances came very early on, courtesy of Kopek de Board in the Supreme. Lots to like there. Yeah,
I really like the top 2, Kopek de Board and William Money. I thought you had the sort of standard setter from the DRF and the improver going head-to-head, heading into it. Could see a rematch next season in the Arkle. I imagine they're both going to go novice chasing. If you look at it, this was William Money's 7th run under rules. It was Kopek de Board's 4th, so you'd think the winner probably has more improvement to come, but the way that Barry Connell kind of campaigns his horses, they are to keep improving, as we've seen with Marie Nationale. Kopek de Board sort of bunny hopped the last, but I never thought he was in danger, and that set a brilliant half an hour's worth of atmosphere with the kind of fourfold still alive on the Tuesday at Cheltenham, and the atmosphere on that Tuesday was fantastic as a result. And yeah, I was impressed with the performance.
Lots of the data to back him up as well,
Yeah.
stride length, speed going into the hurdles, etc.
Yeah, and just on the atmosphere, like to me, when Kopek de Board won, it was a spine tingle cheer that like it was real, and they started singing "Ole Ole," and you know you don't get that, but it was the first favourite goes in, and you know building up to the 4-timer, but it was I didn't back the winner obviously, but I thought that the atmosphere that he generated was brilliant. Like it was a real, I don't know, it was a full sound, it was a real intensity about it.
Yeah.
Looking forward, the first race of the 28, looking forward to the rest of the meeting. But on Kopek, but he was very good. Like he didn't jump at all well when he won his maiden hurdle. He jumped a bit better than the last one at the Racing Festival. Jumped better again here. But I thought it was a good race, and I know Steve, you like the Bury and Bingham hurdle, but I thought this as well was really good. The top three here were very good. Like William Money, he missed Cheltenham last year. He was a good bumper horse last year. He's only starting to come this season as a novice hurdler. At Punchestown the last day, he was very, very good, and he probably stepped forward again. And Romeo Coolio, like it was a really fast run race, and he was up with it from a long way out. That's the way that Gordon said they were going to ride him, and he that's the way he won at Leopardstown the last day. And the three of them picked up at the final flight together. Like it was a real horse race. It was a really, really enjoyable, intense horse race, and the three of them pulled nicely clear of Carnegie in fourth. But I think the three of them, and we're not certain which routes they're going to go. I think William Money is definitely going to go chasing because he's a 7-year-old now, and he's 7 rising 8. It's late enough already to be going chasing, if they're going chasing. So it looks like he will go chasing. Romeo Cool is a point-to-point winner. He might go chasing as well. Kopek de Board as well. Interesting that Paul Townend said afterwards that he's not the finished article yet. So more to come from him is pretty scary, whichever route he goes.
He's a big horse. He is a big horse. Exciting wherever he goes. Similar sentiments apply to the first three home in the Turners. The New Lion is a horse that they're talking about already for the Champion Hurdle with justification, I think. I mean, there's a gap to go. What were your immediate impressions?
No, I think so, yeah. I think absolutely. Like, we know the the Turners race, it's a kind of a pace race over the intermediate trip as opposed to the Supreme Novice Hurdle, which is kind of a stamina race over the minimum trip. And the Turners or the Bury and Bingham, it's got a really good record in the Champion Hurdle. So you can see it. And again, really good race. Like the three horses that finished first, second, and third. The Yellow Clay second, Final Demand third. They're very, very good. Like going into the race, they had it all in front of them. The New Line was so good in the shallow hurdle. He's laid the shallow hurdle, goes to rest now in this race. But I thought the Yellow Clay set a really high standard, and when he jumped the last, I thought he was going to go on and win it. So for the New Lion to get him on the run up the hill, it was a really good performance by the second and third. But yeah, the New Lion I thought was very good.
How realistic are his Champion Hurdle hopes, Steve?
Very realistic. I was really impressed. I was kind of a bit against the horse. I didn't know how much he'd find in a battle, and that was the question mark coming from it, because he just won his previous races so easily. You thought, you've got two top Irish contenders here. How much are you going to find in a finish? And yeah, he found, didn't he? Looking at it, he hit the fastest split going down the hill. He hit 36.53 miles an hour going down the hill, which is the fastest of the whole week. Like, he definitely has the pace for a Champion Hurdle. Was really long at the last. Like, Harry needed a big leap from him, and you don't do that if you're a tired horse. Final Demand kind of made a bit of a mistake at the last. Would probably appreciate softer ground and a step up in trip. He looks definitely one for the Brown Advisory next year. I imagine the Yellow Clay will go a similar sort of route, but all three of those will be towards the head of the betting for festival races next season, that's for sure.
Let's just do a quick Champion Hurdle selection. Constitution Hill 3-1, Kopek de Board 4-1, Lossiemouth 5s, New Lion 7, State Man 10s. What do you fancy? Something else? Golden Ace, the defending champion 25s?
Yeah, I think if Kopek de Board goes hurdling, he's really interesting. But if he doesn't, then yeah, I'd be in the New Lions camp.
You?
I love Lossiemouth, and I really hope that she is. But you cannot back her this far out without no run and no bet. Yeah, I'd probably be with her camp, but I'm not putting any money on it this time.
Now we reflect on the Albert Bartlett. Jasmine Devoe, my goodness, what an impressive winner. But I think the race is going to work out quite nicely. I think there's some good horses there. Obviously, the big Westerner, she ran well. I really like Wendigo, who was really badly hampered. I think Wendigo would have finished third. What did you make of the race, Don?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good race. Paul Townend was really patient on Jasmine Devoe. Like, his Achilles heel is his jumping. Like, he got away with it when he won his maiden hurdle. He didn't jump a hurdle. He didn't get away with it then in the Lawlers race, the Grade 1 race that the Yellow Clay won. And then he went to the Dublin Race Festival and he jumped a lot better in his cheek pieces, which were absent on Friday, which was I was surprised to see that when I saw, that was one of the bases on which I thought he might run well, but given that he jumped way better in the cheek pieces. But Willie Mullins, no need for cheek pieces. And he didn't jump well again. Like, he lost ground at a lot of his hurdles, including at the third last, which is the key hurdle. He went from kind of just starting to make ground to being knocked back to second last or last. And then, in his favour, there are only 2 flights of hurdles in the last 7 furlongs on the new course. So, but the way that he made his ground down the hill, that was, to me, the ease with which he did that. That was the action of a really classy horse. And then he stayed on the Big Westerner. She was a bit unlucky. She got into that kind of scrimmaging on the inside. Wingman, with a bit of a mistake the second last. She was just in behind him. So that wasn't ideal for her, but she got out. I think she was still the second best on the day. I think Jasmine Devoe was the best horse in the race on the day. And yeah, look, I think he's a really exciting horse. If he can jump fences a little bit better than, relative to his opponents, then he can jump hurdles. He could be a serious chaser.
Similar takeaway, Steve?
Yeah, I think Paul Townend would want to be on a different horse for his first few starts over fences and then can hop on for one of the races at the Cheltenham Festival next year. Because, I don't think you can ride him with much confidence over fences. Yes, he might obviously respect them a bit better, but I don't think it's a lack of respect. I think it's a lack of technique over hurdles. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to be schooling him at home, that's for sure. But yeah, he's obviously just comes alive at Cheltenham. He's now champion bumper winner and Albert Bartlett winner. I love the Big Western. She's a massive filly. Like, she's going to be some sight over fences next season. But yes, she was hampered slightly, but was still beaten 2.5 lengths at the finish.
Yeah, Wendigo is the horse that I'll be taking out of that. I like the way that he's been campaigned and look forward to seeing. I'm hoping he goes over fences. So quite an exciting horse for the Snowdon team. Triumph Hurdle, Willie Mullins with 100 horses in the race and 100-1 winner. I'm not even sure he knew which of the horses coming through to deny the 2 horses we'd all talked up beforehand as being 2 standout young horses, Lulamba and East India Dock. So, fluke, no fluke, this is real?
Oh, it's real. We always say on this show that the London Gold Cup is always the best form guy for the whole season. I just didn't quite think it would go for the Triumph Hurdle. This race nearly went as you'd expect. All of the horses that you wanted to be in their positions were in their positions. Lady Vega, Allen, Lulamba, East India Dock, Hello Neighbour stalking in behind. And then they jumped the last and suddenly, hang on, what is this? And you saw everyone going through their race card trying to work out what it was. But that kind of flat form, the form in big field handicaps, definitely, he knew how to race late on and that probably won him the race. But I wouldn't give up on many of them going forward. Lulamba is probably going to be the one that I think that's going to progress further. He was obviously the least experienced of them coming into it. East India Dock, that probably is as good as he is. Didn't jump as well as he had done previously in November and December. But yeah, what are you going to do with the winner? It's probably now going to be, 6-4 for Punchestown. Head there and then on to Royal Ascot.
Yeah, no doubt.
And on to Melbourne.
Madness.
Standard.
Yeah.
Standard. And then bought to run in Australia. Standard.
Yeah.
Like Vauban. What do you think the future holds for Lulamba? Fences next season?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't go over fences next season. Like, he's so lightly raced, and the fight that he showed to get the better of the battle-hardened, classy East India Dock up the near side. That was it was an attribute that we didn't know that he had, but he showed that, and he was serious. And as Steve said, if you took Ponyross out of the race, you have exactly what you wanted. Right. The 2 of them fighting out the finish, a little way clear of the rest of them. And that form or the market prediction would have come to the fore, but I think you have to believe Ponyross. But I can imagine East India Dock, he'll mix flat and hurdles as well, so he'll be going chasing. But Lulamba, if he went over fences now, he'd be really interesting. Now,
we've watched a lot of racing in our lifetime. Very few of us, I imagine, watched 6.5 jumping the last in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle and said, she's in trouble. Something's going to go past her. Still watching the replay again last night, still don't understand how she gets beat jumping the last the way she did against the rail, travel like she did in her class form, run in the Irises out. How does Erin Titeman pick her up?
1.04 in running she was.
I'd have had it shorter.
Yeah.
Gubbed.
Surprising that she only hit 1.04. Look, she did everything right. Keaton did everything right on her, delivered her at the last, go and win her race. Arab Entitlement. Like she's a stamina filly. Her dam is a half sister to Rogue Angel, an Irish Grand National winner. And I think Henry de Bromhead said afterwards that he had a race in Limerick in mind. The Shannon Spray was on the same day, which is over further. I think it's 2 miles 6.5.
Yeah.
But he came here instead. And like for her to win this over 2 miles on a furlong, a filly or a mare who's going to get further, it was a serious performance, I thought. And again, Rachel Blackmore, patient as you like, in behind. And it was interesting to hear Rachel afterwards saying that when she jumped the last, she really thought that she could get the leader, because she kind of, obviously she knew what her mare had left. But she's a really likely race mare, Arab Entitlement, and it was a serious performance, I think.
Extraordinary. I still can't believe it.
No, it's a good race to watch. You'd imagine that the step up to 2.5 miles will suit both of them. It's another one where you look at 6.5 and you go, oh, did she get the trip? But actually they're pulling further clear of Diva Luna at the end. She's not stopping, and given that flat form over extended trips, she'll probably get 2.5 miles, and both are probably going to be running in the mare's hurdle next season.
Let's spin through the novice chasers. Let's deal with the Arkle first of all. Steve, you can do this one. Because Majborough was a horse that I think you highlighted very early in his career as a superstar. I think he actually proved he is that calibre still, but unfortunately not in a winning performance.
No, I really liked the performance though, and I see a lot of people now saying, oh, he needs to go up to the Ryanair, he doesn't jump well enough. Like, he's a bit of a Duvan technique. Like, he kind of hurdles the fences, which obviously has its dangers, as it then did at the second last. But I think his biggest asset is how fast he can jump and how quick he can get away. And I just worry if you're going to end up running in a Ryanair, you're going to take away the biggest asset that is what he's got. I'd definitely campaign as a champion chaser next season. I get Triumph hurdles, horses often get further, and he does look as if he will get further in time. But just the way he jumps, when Mark Walsh really asks him for one, he lengthens into them. It's quick away from his fences, and I think it'd be a real shame if they campaign him over further. Fair play, Django Bay was kind of brought in as a super sub for Sergino. The commentary on Racing TV actually said, he's out of contention, and then suddenly staying on well, and you kind of feel for Only by Night, like we touched on with Golden Ace, you need to be in it to win it, and it was a fairly bold call to run Only by Night in this rather than the Mare's Chase, and she looked as if she was going to collect, and suddenly Django Bay came through later on. I think this is probably going to be the last time we'll see him run over 2 miles. He looks a Ryanair horse for next season. Good race, good to watch, and yeah, I wouldn't give up on Marshborough. I'd be a lot more positive than what I've heard a lot of other people around him.
Any views on the race?
Yeah, I think a 2 mile chaser, they have to be sharp and fast over the fences. Like Muscat Flower, if he didn't win, he fell or he unseated. Like to have that 2 mile speed or to be effective at that level over two. Yeah, exactly. You're on the edge, and you have to do that. And look, he's an experienced chaser. I think he made a mistake at the fourth last as well, didn't he? The open ditch, and then made that really bad mistake at the second last, and still finished third. Django Bay, yeah, look, he needs to go up and trip. He will go up and trip. His final furlong was 13.8 seconds, which was 5 lengths faster than Majborough was. That was after he made the mistake. And he's an entry horse, isn't he, Django Bay? Like he won the Formby. That was the race in which Gordon Elliott's horse fell. And then he ran a really big race in the Premier Handicap Hurdle at entry last year, didn't he, when he was hampered by, I think, Springwell Bay at the second last. So it wouldn't be surprising to see him go to entry now, and it's the Manifesto Chase, isn't it? It's the 2.5 mile race he'll go to rather than the Maggle. Yeah. No, he's but look, he showed a lot of guts to get up the hill. Speaking
of a lot of guts, the Brown Advisory went the way of Lecky Watson. Probably underappreciated, considering the fact he's now 3 from 3 over fences.
Yeah. Look, and Sean O'Keefe said yesterday he thought he was a really big price. That's easy in hindsight, but you can see where he's coming from. He was a 20-to-1 shot going into the race. And look, Ballyburn was keen and free, made that mistake as well. But he was kind of losing ground at most of his fences, Ballyburn. I think it's just, I don't know, maybe being restrained is not helping him over his fences. And see what Willie said afterwards, that they might just let him jump and run. But he was obviously disappointed. But Lecky Watson, he was gutsy. Like he ran a massive race in the Champion Bumper a couple of years ago. He finished 4th in that. He finished 5th last year, and he's a stamina horse. Like his runs before this over fences were both over 2.5 miles. So in hindsight, there was always a chance that he'd improve again for stepping up to 3 miles, and he really stayed on well. The Better Days Ahead ran well without running as well as I expected him to, and he lost second place in the end to Stellar Story. But it wasn't a fast run race. I think a stronger pace probably would have helped the winner, but it probably would have helped Lucky or Stellar Story as well.
Okay, well, just looking at the Gold Cup betting, obviously, Lecky Watson's 33-1 for the Gold Cup. Obviously, there's some other more sexy horses at the top of the market, but Lecky Watson, unbeaten over fences, as Don's saying, in terms of stamina, he's a stamina-laden horse, clearly. And I don't want to damn him with faint praise by saying he could be like a Lord Windermere type, because obviously Lord Windermere won the equivalent and then won the Gold Cup the following season. But it's underestimating a novice who really stays well is something that I'm loath to do. So I wouldn't be averse at having a dip at 33-1.
Yeah, just checking the Irish ratings, rated him 159, so they're relatively impressed with it. Like you said, like reversed Albert Bartlett form with Stellar Story and Dancing City from last year. 3 from 3 over fences. He'll run in all those Grade 1 3-mile chases next year, and let's see how good he is.
Ballyburn, future?
I still think I'd still try over fences. I don't think there's any great rush to go to the Stays hurdle with him, like I see many people doing. I've never been in love with his jumping technique. I've said it on the show a fair few times, but I just think you've now got to let him roll. That his head carriage, like it cannot be easy to ride into a fence when you're literally looking down at the ground and then 2 strides before.
Yeah.
Right, what have I got to do? Like that cannot be very easy for Paul Townend to be able to do. And yeah, I think change of tactics and a drop-in trip just to get him to try and jump a bit faster.
Okay. Let's move into some of the other races. Now, obviously, the National Hunt Chase went the way of Haiti Kalur, who I think with the way the race unfolded was in a good position and took full advantage of it. Then we're talking about races like the Jack Richards, I mean, I'm going to open the floor up here at this juncture and let you two go wherever you want with other races that you are keen to reflect on. Don.
I thought Haiti Kalur was really good in the National Hunt Chase. Look, as you said, he got out in front and he probably had an easy enough time of it in front, but he stayed on really well. Resplendent Grey ran a massive race. Like, he got outpaced halfway through the race. He was detached, second last or last, going down the back straight, and he stayed on really well. He could be a Scottish National or maybe a Bet365 Gold Cup horse. He goes well on better ground as well. In a similar vein, Martown in the Ultima. Like, again, he got an easy lead, and he was a beneficiary of a standing start as a front runner because he got away quickly and a few of his potential rivals for the lead didn't. But at the same time, he was very, very strong at the end. He was 2 seconds faster than the next fastest through the last 4 furlongs. He was faster through each of the last 2 furlongs by a second and a half in the penultimate furlong. So he really went to the line strongly. He was off mark of 127. I'm not sure what his new mark is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's
up 15.
Yeah, there you go. So 142. You would have expected that, but that's only his 5th run over fences, so he could go on again, and he's a really interesting stayer. I thought in the final race, the Martin Pot Conditional Riders hurdle, like Woodoo, she was incredible. Like, she was brilliant. And look, Gordon Elliott waited for the last race on the last day for his winner, but you could see how much it meant to him. And he had some horses run really well in defeat as well, like the Yellow Clay ran a massive race, Romeo Cooley ran a massive race. He's had all the way the 2nd and 3rd in the Brown Advisory. But Woodoo, like, she's 7 for 7 now over hurdles. She was a very, very easy winner of the race, and she's up to in the 150s, I think, low 150s. So she's a graded mare. She's only 5. We still don't know how good she could be. And actually, in behind her Active Authority, I thought he did well to stay on. He was well back early on. He was 16th or 17th jump at the second last flight, and he stayed on really well. He'd stayed on well at Warwick the time before that, and he stayed on well here. He's bred for further as well. So a strongly run 2.5 miles, or maybe even stepping up to 3, that could see him in a good light as well. Okay.
Steve, before you get into it, a nod to you, Doddy the Great. Well done. You were keen on Doddy the Great's chances. Big price, enjoyable result.
Yeah, nice to have a 25-to-1 winner. Touch on a couple of things that Don's obviously said. We had obviously the first year of the changes with the National Hunt Chase and the Novice Handicap Chase coming back. They were definitely rewarded. You had big fields, you had competitive betting heats. Those both have definitely worked. The other changes around it were around that novices needed one more run than what they previously had. You had Martown, 4th run, or 4 runs over fences, only just qualified. Jaguar went for the plate rather than the Novice Handicap Chase because he'd had that 4 runs. So both of them won with the minimum amount of qualifying runs. I thought that was quite eye-catching going forward. Another stat that I was saying around the preview circuit was in the Fred Winter. Joseph O'Brien has a brilliant record with horses that only had 3 runs over hurdles prior to that. He had Put Your Hands Together that was really impressive in that. He's gone up 15 in Ireland up to 139, but yeah, you can imagine he'll be campaigned as a county hurdle horse next season. So maybe don't back him for the first couple of runs next season, but keep an eye on him for that.
In the fog at Christmas.
Yeah, brilliant training performance by Willie Mullins to bring Jimmy DeSoy back for the Coral Cup. Paul Townend obviously was on board the other horse, but yeah, I thought Danny Mullins gave him a brilliant ride. Stumptown, that was another change. Obviously, the cross country going back to a handicap. I thought that worked. That was a competitive heat again. Looked in trouble around, sort of a mile out, but stayed on well at the finish. Keith Donoghue was just brilliant. If you look back, obviously, Sean Flanagan nearly goes the wrong way on Vanillier, and it's Keith Donoghue that kind of forces about 8 of them to go the right direction. I bet he wished that he was down the inside and let them all go and follow, and he'd have snuck up the inside. There was a few years ago, Sean Petra had kind of won when he'd been round there about 10 times and everything else took the wrong course. I thought that would have been quite funny if that would have happened. But if you look back at the replay, Keith Donoghue was just worth so many pounds riding in that race. Yeah. Whenever they turned left, he was on left on the inside. Whenever he turned right, he was right on the inside. He was just absolutely brilliant.
He's won 5 now, hasn't he? I know he had Tiger Roll for company in a few of them, but he's brilliant at them. And you know, Davy Russell used to do the exact same thing. Yeah. When it didn't matter whether they were turning right or left, Davy Russell was on the inside, and Keith Donoghue is very similar. Yeah, he's just worth his weight in gold. I kind of said the same around Derek O'Connor as well. Oh, Johnny Who was a bad beat. I thought Barry Stone did brilliantly, because if you've never ridden Cheltenham before, that's his first ever ride at the track, and he just tracked Derek wherever he went and then pounced late. And I thought, that's how you ride Cheltenham, isn't it? I remember listening back to other jockeys, and they used to say, oh, if I look across and Ruby Walsh and Davy Russell are next to me, I'm in the right place. Yeah. And he performed those tactics down to a T. I thought Bambino Fever was really good in the bumper. She clocked a really good speed figure at the DRF, and again clocked a good speed figure in the Champion Bumper. She's obviously going to be a short price favourite for the Mares Novice Hurdle next season, but yeah, she looks really exciting going forward. And just a shout out to Dino Blue. She'd been a beaten favourite in the Mares Novice Hurdle in 2022, finished second as a beaten favourite in the Grand Annual the year after, beaten favourite in the Mares Chase last year, and then finally got her win. I thought she had Allegory Devassi covered when she came down at the last, and yeah, that was a much deserved victory for Dino Blue.
She jumped brilliantly all the way around.
Yeah, she was very good. She just put it all together. Yeah, no, it was good.
Okay, that wraps up our review of the races as a whole. Obviously, still to come, we have what we will deem from the races run this year at the Cheltenham Festival what might be our best bets of the Cheltenham Festival 2026. Why not start early? But before we look ahead to some bets for the 2026 Cheltenham Festival, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with free spins on offer if you get 2 or 3 selections correct. Prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as the jackpot for all 6, courtesy of Bet365. T's and C's apply. Okay, so here we go. Steve, Don and I putting our minds to try and find one horse that we are keen to play at this stage for the Cheltenham Festival next year. We didn't do terribly last year. Stateman and Factor Fire.
One exception, yeah.
We're a team. We're a team.
Okay.
No names mentioned.
Good.
No names mentioned.
Team's
but
better.
Stateman was put up for the Champion Hurdle.
At 4-1, I didn't get the value, but nearly got the result.
Factor Fire was put up for the Gold Cup, but won the Ryanair. Slade Steel, unfortunately.
Slade Steel was put up for the Arkle, yeah.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about 2026. What's the one bet you'd have now?
It can be more than one if you like.
No, it definitely won't be more than one. At the prices, I think Rocky's Diamond is interesting for the Stayers Hurdle. I backed him this year as a 5-year-old.
Ran really well.
He ran really well. Look, no 5-year-old has ever won the Stayers Hurdle, but not many running it. Tiger Roll ran it in 2015. He was one of 2 or 3 5-year-olds ran in the race that year. But no 5-year-olds had run in it until Rocky's Diamond this year. He was up at the pace early on, and after he was passed, he did really well. He stuck to his task well. He finished 4th. Declan Queally obviously has campaigned him very astutely. He ran him in the Christmas Hurdle. He was a 66-to-1 shot that day. He finished 3rd. And then he went to the Galmire Hurdle. He won the Galmire Hurdle. No 5-year-old had ever won the Galmire Hurdle before either. So I'm not sure if they're going to go over fences with him next year or not. But if he does stay over hurdles, he could be interesting if he just, there's obviously natural maturity going to come going 5 to 6. And I thought he was under the radar this year. He ran well. I think he could be under the radar again if he stays over hurdles next season. He's 33 to 1 or thereabouts, I think.
He's 20 to 1 with Bet365
right.
for the Stayers hurdle next year. Rocky's Diamond. I think Connections were pretty pleased with how he ran.
Yeah, he ran a blind.
To his future.
He ran really well.
At this year's festival. Okay, so Rocky's Diamond in the books. Steve.
Just before we get on to my actual 3 bets that I'm going to have for next year, I just want to mention a couple because I forgot to say it. In the Fred Winter, Stencil is a brute of a horse. I absolutely fell in love with him in the parade ring. Absolutely lovely. Obviously, the Fred Winter, they ran too fast. Like, they just went a mad gallop. Hot Fuss was one of those that forced a gallop and stayed there and did much the best out of prominent horses. He's only up 2 to 124. Now, that rating will struggle to get in to races next year, albeit that the county hurdle didn't fill this year. But, yeah, I'd keep Hot Fuss kind of, in your thoughts going forward.
Yeah.
But my 3, and it's going to be a 314 to 1 treble. Okay. You can go each way if you like. Woodoo is the first of those, 8 to 1 for the Mayor's Hurdle. Now, this obviously is a race that can change complexion late on with Lossiemouth coming in at the 11th hour this year. But if you look on ratings, she's been given an Irish rating of 151. That's only £1 behind what Golden Ace has been awarded for winning the Champion Hurdle. She's now 7 from 7 over hurdles, has Cheltenham form, albeit obviously on the other track, but it's over this intermediate distance. I thought she was going to get the Gordon Elliott prep a couple of runs before Christmas, kept fresh for the Mayor's Hurdle, and at 8 to 1, I was blown away by her performance in the Martin Pipe. I thought she won it easily. As I touched on, I love the Turners as a race going forward. I do respect the New Lion for the Champion Hurdle, but the one bet I want to have out of that is Final Demand for the Brown Advisory. Now, without the Grade 1 2.5 mile novice chase, he's 99% sure to go for the Brown Advisory, so at least you know where his target's going to go. If you look at those horses, Final Demand was the least experienced of those going into it. I thought a bit of softer ground would help him. I thought a longer trip would help him, and I was really impressed with how he stayed on, having made a mistake at the finish. Was an impressive point-to-point winner, will definitely improve for going over fences. And then the third, and I've been against this horse for about the last 2 years, and that's Tiapu in the Stayers. If you look at it, without Bob Olinger in there, he was a really impressive winner of the race. I know the Wall Park finished 3rd, but he'd have beaten him by 8 lengths. He was kind of an up-and-comer, as well as Rocky Diamond further in behind. Now, he would appreciate softer ground. He's probably as fast as he'd have wanted it in this race. If you look at the competition that's going to come into this, the Albert Bartlett, you imagine the top 3, Derry Hassan Paddy, Jasmine DeVoe and the Big Western are all going to go novice chasing. You then look at the Potemps, you had Doddy the Great and Jericho de Repine. They're not Stayers Hurdle horses. You look at the Coral Cup, Jimmy Desoy was plenty keen enough over the 2.5 mile trip. I can't see him turning into a Stayers Hurdle horse. So where are they going to come from? Tiapu hasn't had a lot of racing. He's only going to be 9 next year, so it's not like he feels like he's been around forever, but only going to be 9 next year, and he's around 4 to 1. And yeah, I'd probably put him in because you know how he's going to be campaigned. He's going to run at Punchestown probably, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't win there. I think he's then going to go for the Hatton's Grace and back to the Stayers. You're not going to see him a lot, but he's definitely going to be off a shorter price than what 4 to 1 that's currently available. So we'll do at 8 to 1 for the Mares, Final Demand at 6 to 1 for the Brown Advisory, Tiapu 4 to 1 for the Stayers, and that turns out into a guaranteed 314 to 1.
Easy money.
Easy money.
Easy money. Obviously, you've got 2 in there for the Stayers, 1 for Rocky's Diamond, Tiapu, Woodoo, Mares Hurdle, and Final Demand and the Brown Advisory. I'm going for, I did it last year, so I'll go again. Factor file for the Gold Cup. I've told Willie Mullins what he has to do. It's not that hard. You win the John Durkan, you win the King George, and then you just send him straight for the Gold Cup. Game over. I think he's the classiest horse in the Gold Cup field. Obviously, there's the question mark about the stamina, but I'd like to see him ridden positively. I'd like to find out rather than smothering him at the back, trying to hold up the horse. Just let him flow. And that sort of dictates the other horse that I want to include, and that's Jaguar, because I'm assuming Factor File will skip the Ryanair next year and head to the Gold Cup, which leaves the Ryanair as looking for a JP McManus horse. I thought Jaguar was one of the most impressive horses, both physically and I still think in terms of his jumping. It was pretty polished performance in winning the plate, but I think there's still better to come. He had that one defeat over fences so far where he was behind Jinko Blue, which actually doesn't work out too badly because Jinko Blue then went on to win at Windsor and had Corwell Potter in behind as well. So And I just think there's so much more to come from him. He's a big, strong unit. We watched the race together. I mean, there was very little doubt all the way through what was going to happen in that race. I think he's still well handicapped. The Paddy Power meeting at Cheltenham, right up his street. Was it 147 he's got?
Yeah, and it's just the way that they put him into the plate rather than the novice handicap chase, and he was right in the middle. Like if his jumping was ever going to get found out, it was going to be in that scenario.
I think, yeah. So Bet365 need to introduce him into the Ryanair market. He's not in there at the moment, but if you use oddschecker, they're
around 25s.
Yeah. So those are the two for me. So let's spin through those again. Rocky's Diamond, 20-1. Woodhoo, 8-1 for the Mayor's Hurdle. Final Demand, 6-1 for the Brand Advisory. Tuapu, 4-1 for the Stayers. Fact to File for the Gold Cup, 6-1. And around 25-1 for Jaguar for the Ryanair. And that is it for our review of the Cheltenham Festival. Every time we come to this, I'm always a little bit sad that it's over. I've enjoyed it, but sentiment at the end of it?
It's so intense, isn't it? Like the whole week is so intense, and then suddenly you get to the end, it's like, wow, it's over. Like once it starts, it just rolls on. It's unrelenting, isn't it, until you get to the end of it. But I thought it was a fantastic week.
Yeah, Steve, last word on it?
Well, you've got less time to wait for Aintree now. It's only 2.5 weeks this year, so yeah, we'll crack on to Aintree now.
Indeed. Thank you all very much for joining us for this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thanks to Steve Ryder and Donn McClean for their company today. You for watching. As always, if you've liked what you've heard or seen in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review in the comments section on YouTube and on Apple Podcast. I will take a short break from our series, but we'll be back with a preview of the Grand National. Until then, bye-bye.